This is not your mother's middle-aged. No longer is waking up each day, living the wash, rinse, and repeat cycle acceptable. We have the life lessons, the relationships, the wins, and the losses with which to navigate to our highest self, without hesitation and without fear leading the way. We have been there and done that, and so we have so much to offer the world and each other. So join me on this journey, speaking to ordinary women doing extraordinary things for new insights, new ideas, new medical breakthroughs, and new life lessons. You will be inspired to find your best life here and now. My name is Wendy Charles Maguire, and this is your Second Wind podcast. Here we are, Second Winders. Thank you so much for joining us again. And today I have another fabulous woman. Her name is Tisha Michelle, AKA Mindset Slayer. And she's host of the very popular podcast called Seeing with Your Soul. If you haven't listened, go ahead. How many episodes you got now? Like 100 and what?
I think like 114, I think.
That's a lot. That's a lot. That's awesome. And there's so many little nuggets of wisdom and one-liners in every show. So definitely go check that out. And she is not only that, she's the founder of Heal, Align, and Glow. She's a mother of 4, and she's a spiritual teacher and guide. So I found out about Tisha Michelle at this conference I was at, and everybody was talking about her hypnosis, how she's helped me with this. All these people seemed to know who this Tisha Michelle was. So I'm just sitting there. I get on Instagram and I look her up and I ask the person next to me, is this who everybody's talking about? And they're like, yeah. I go, oh, she seems really cool. So right during the conference, I tried to be discreet, but I definitely DM'd her right then and said, hey, I've got this podcast. Everybody here at this conference is singing your praises. Can we chat? And she got right back to me. It's like, sure. And I was thrilled. I was absolutely thrilled. Hearing all these, when you just hear about how wonderful someone is and how someone has helped so many people, to think that they will talk to you it's really quite a thrill. And I'm very honored that you are taking the time to be on Second Wind, the podcast. So welcome, Tisha Michelle.
Thank you. I mean, I'm honored to even be on here as well. I think it's a big thing too. People think it's like, a lot of people think it's a one-sided thing. And I'm like, it's mutual. It's an invitation. Like, you're inviting me like into something. But I've heard people say that as well too. They're like, oh, so you do want to do it? Oh, like you just messaged me back. I'm like, yeah, why wouldn't I? Like, what is this? Like, why wouldn't I?
Yeah, that's probably a whole nother topic, isn't it? Yeah. About, worthiness and are you really in the arena? I don't know, but
yeah, I get a lot of that. And I do my absolute best to not operate from a place of ego, in that sense. And I've seen that a lot. And I think that's also, so it is a part of the worthiness, but it's also people see a lot of people operating really just from their ego, where it's like, oh, I'm too good. I'm like, no, it's an invitation. Like, you're inviting me into your world, whether your podcast, with the people, your babies, your listeners are your babies, and you're inviting me. That's a huge thing that someone's like, hey, I want your energy in this space. So I'm like, it's definitely a mutual thing. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. And I'm glad you're joining us in our sandbox today. So it's a good thing. Let's start right off the bat, because this is really good. Your story, I couldn't even believe it when you were telling it. So your whole world changed in a matter of one incident. And you said that was really your second wind, was how that affected you. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I get that question. First of all, I love the second wind. I like that.
Thank you.
Because I'll have people as I'll say, well, what was the shift? What was that thing? And I'm like, it was after the death of my best friend. And the thing is that hit me like so hard. Right. And I had lost my grandmother before, my grandmother and my dad, but this was really different. And it was because it was unexpected. So after she had passed, it was a couple days afterwards. Don't quote me exactly like when, but it was after the funeral. And I found myself home alone. and I was looking in the closet for, I was trying to get some tape, actually. I wanted to tape something. And when I put my hand up at the top, I felt something, and then like I pulled it down, and it was actually the program from the funeral. I had it in my living room up on the stand, but I had extras. And when I touched that, I just literally when I think back to it, it's kind of like being in a movie, and I just like slid down with it, and I was crying so bad. I mean, I'm just like crying, like where it's just like, your stomach is hurting and it's like the snot is coming. And I remember saying, like, literally, when I think of it, it's like, yo, that was like a movie. I mean, it was so painful. And I just kept crying. And I said, there has to be more to life than this, because if this is it, I don't want to be here. And
you said you were in the closet.
I was in my closet on the floor, just crying. And it was that, I don't know if you've ever experienced it, but it's like where like you're crying so bad, like it just like everything hurts. It was like my stomach hurt. But what it really was, now that I'm a lot more in tune and aware, is like my soul was hurting. And it was just like, it was just so deep, and like, it just feel it. And I just kept asking that question. I said, there has to be more to life than this. If this is it, I don't want to be here. And I always have to be very like clear to say I wasn't suicidal. I was just questioning my existence. So I would say that's where my second win, that shift, was because I asked a question. And the difference is, the way I look at it now is like, we've all prayed before. You pray to your God, your universe, whatever, higher power that you're connecting to. And I've done that before, but I don't think I was really open to receiving and listening. And it was something about that day that it felt different, was that when I asked that question, I really wanted to know, is there more to life than this? And it just opened up after that. And I was like, oh, okay. I wasn't really prepared, to really like buckle up. But the transition from that after that day was a couple of days, is when her sister, my best friend, Gloria, was her sister, Leah. She called me and she told me that her aunt had referred her to 2 psychics. Because what happened with Aaliyah was, on the way back from the funeral, she was in the limousine and she had her breakdown, her moment. And she was like, this is stupid. This doesn't make any sense. I need answers, and I need answers now. And then her aunt was like, well, I have 2 people you can talk to. And she gave her the number to 2 different psychics. And I'm not sure if she talked to both of them. I know she talked to one for sure. So she just happened to call me to tell me what happened, what this lady, was saying to her. And some of the things that the lady was saying to her, I didn't even know. And I've been in the family since I was 15. I'm 41 now. So it was like some of the things that she was saying, I was like, how's she know? I don't even know this. And I just remember saying to her, I said, give me her number. I was like, give me her number. I need to book a session with her. And I think it's really important for people to know is I didn't believe in any of that. Even though I was raised in a family with my mom and grandma, I didn't want anything to do with any of that. But I wanted to hear something so bad from my best friend that I was willing to step into the unknown. It was absolutely.
Yeah, you said you didn't, even though your mother and your grandmother were both kind of into that stuff.
Absolutely.
You were like, no way.
It was a fear.
You said the word stupid as well.
Yeah, I was like, this is stupid. Yeah, I was like, this is stupid. Like, my mother would come to my house and I would see her make this look, and I would look at her and I'd be like, don't do it. Don't you dare tell me. Because if she's seen someone in my, don't. I would literally say, don't bring that stuff to my house.
Wait, your mother, what would she do?
She would see something, or she would see like a shadow, or she would, feel like a presence. And I'd be like, don't you do that. Nope. But it was always like that. My grandmother would see people, would know that a person passed away. Like, my mom and them are from the Cayman Islands. So she would then call the Cayman Islands and check on the person, or say they came to visit, and they'd be like, yeah, they passed last night. And all that. My grandfather, I remember vividly too, just going into the kitchen when I lived with my grandparents, head into the kitchen, and I would be scared, and I'd go back to the room because it would be all these statues and these candles in the kitchen with these saints and stuff, just like burning. I'm like, yeah, it's not. And now all around my place, I have the Buddhas, I have the candles. See, I have like the tapestry, like it's, it's so different, in that sense. But, having that feeling like that there was like a big loss and a big piece of me that was missing, I was willing to step into the unknown. I didn't care. I was like, I need to hear some. Yeah.
However you could get them. You're like, well, maybe I'll get them here. Maybe I'll get them there. You didn't really care. You just wanted some answers.
Absolutely.
Wow. Okay. Well, I want to talk more about that. Let's first dive back and find out, who is Tisha? How did you grow up? Like, now we know about your mom and your grandmother. They had some spiritual connections. How'd you grow up?
So it's interesting when people say, like, who is Tisha? I'm like, I'm still figuring that out every day. I'm evolving and growing every day, and I'm learning new parts of myself. But if you want to get into some of like the practical and the basic things, like I was born in New York, in Brooklyn. My dad was not in my life until I was 14, and he was only there for about 2 years, and then he died. My mom, she had a drug addiction problem. Definitely. She's clean and, many years. So kudos to her for that. But I was really mainly raised with my grandparents. So I was raised with my grandparents. And then I got pregnant at 16 and had my first child at 16. And from there on, it was just like, life just, I married my high school sweetheart, right? So those things actually do happen, in that sense. And then I left and went to the military. So I know people are probably like, wait, what?
Back up, rewind.
Yeah.
You had a baby, you got married, sounds good, all is well. Mm-hmm. And then you're like, I think I'm going to go into the military.
Mm-hmm. At 21.
Why?
At 21. So my aunt was telling me, my aunt wanted to go into the Navy, and then I think she got pregnant. And so she was telling me about the military. And at the time I was really kind of questioning some things too. Like, so even though I was young at 21, I grew up super fast, right? I didn't really have that firm foundation and not the traditional route. So it was really like, I'm on my own. And not saying that I raised myself, but there was that great portion that I did, in a sense, where I grew up pretty quickly, and having a kid at 16. And then I had my second kid at 19. So at this point, it was just like the military seemed like it sold a really nice thing. And it was like, oh, the benefits and the stability and the structuring that I can receive from that, and not having to really worry about like finances and stuff. So I was like, this makes sense.
Yeah,
this makes sense.
Except now you're a mom. So what happens to your kids?
So it's really interesting because I as I start to like really reflect on things, we were going to, me and my ex-husband, we were going to get married anyway, but it got sped up a lot quicker because I was going into the military. And I was telling my daughter this the other day. I was like, oh yeah, I should have been known that wasn't going to work from just the way it started. The foundation wasn't even firm. When you go into the military and you're not married and you have kids, you have to give custody up to someone. You have to give someone custody because you're in the military and you can go into war and you can do all different things. So, and if you're not married, you have to give custody up. I was like, there's no way in heck that I would be giving anybody custody. Not my mom, not their other grandmother, not my boyfriend, I was there, which is their dad. I was like, yeah, that's not going to happen. So I ended up getting married, in that sense. So I wouldn't have to do that in there.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
So I always tease now. I say, oh yeah, that just definitely wasn't going to work. Look how that foundation happened. That's the reason why I got married.
Out of necessity.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. So you did it. You took the plunge and you decided to go into the military. Mm-hmm. How'd that go?
You know what? I love the military for the people, and I strongly dislike it for the people. But I can say I learned a lot with that, just even going through boot camp itself, because a lot of people were like, oh my God, you don't like people to tell you what to do. You're like prissy, you're not going to, get through. Not that they were being negative towards me in that sense. They were just basing it off of what they knew of me, the Tisha that they knew. They were like, yeah, you're definitely not going to last through boot camp. People yelling and telling you what to do. They were your
reality. Yeah, they were kind of like your reality check. Like, you want to what?
Exactly.
Okay.
And so it was definitely I could see why people say that, in that sense. But in my mind, I'm like, I can do anything. Like, that might not be me, but I can do this, So it was hard, training was hard, but it was mainly mental. It was definitely mental, because now I'm away from the kids, and I'm in a whole other environment with other people. And yeah, there were people that they were like my age and a little bit younger and stuff too, but I had a whole family. I had a husband, I had 2 kids, you know what I mean? So it was a whole different ballgame, even though we're like the same there, I caught a lot of slack with the drill sergeants in the beginning because I was from New York. So they was like, instantly in the beginning, they was like, oh, I mean, from day one, oh, you got an attitude. You from New York, get down. I'm like, oh my gosh, maybe I should have said I'm from somewhere else. Yeah. So they were really hard.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, they were really hard in the beginning, but then things like kind of shifted in that sense. And I got like built good relationships with the drill sergeant. So I got put into, more of like a leadership role in the sense. So, but that was definitely, it was definitely tough. The physical part was tough too. I failed my first test. I couldn't do the 3 push-ups. So my timing got pushed back further. In there, because when you go in there, you had to be able to run a mile in a certain thing. You had to do a certain amount of sit-ups, and you had to be able to do 3 push-ups. That's just to get out of like orientation to start it. And I failed. I passed everything except for the push-ups. I couldn't do 3 push-ups, and so I had to get pushed back, which means they just put you through some training so you can then retake it. And it was really like it was sad. It was like, why can't I do 3 push-ups? But it was sad because the further if I kept failing or anything, it pushed me back from seeing the kids. Because say if my
time.
That's what I'm trying to say. It added more time, and then the people that I had went in with, some people also didn't pass, but some of the people that I had came in there with, they got bumped up. So now we're separated. So you're going into this new environment, not knowing anybody, and then you do connect with some people, and then they get pushed further, and then you're left back, right? So I kind of look at that and relate that just to life itself, where we just expect that these people are going to stay in our life forever, and then when they don't, you're like, wait, what? You just took something from me. But in actuality, it was like that was the time that you needed. And that was all that it was. And you're evolving, or they're evolving. They evolve because they move forward, and that's okay. Right. There's going to be other people that's going to come along in your life. So I look back on my military time, and I really just like reflect on it, and I can relate it to a lot of things that happened in life after that.
Right. How long were you actually there?
So I did 3 years in active duty, and then I did another 2 years in the reserve. And I was like, deuces. That's
very admirable, though. That's good stuff. 5 years you gave to your country.
Yeah.
So thank you for that.
My original plans was to finish my time there, my first term, and then I was going to re-enlist, and I was going to go to Germany, and I was going to start my clothing line, get it popping in Germany, and then bring it to the States. And that did not happen because I was like, screw this. I cannot stand these people. I don't like people telling me what to do. It was just so much ego. And I was like, I'm done. So that whole course changed, and that's okay.
That's funny. People were telling you didn't like people telling you what to do.
Oh, for sure. I mean, it's so crazy because when I think, think back, through my life, it's just like, it's so random. It's so many different things. Like when I'll talk to someone, I'm like, oh, like, yeah, I can definitely understand that because I was in it. They're like, wait, what? Like, yeah, I'm like, my life was all over the place. And that's what I used to think. But what it did is made me a lot more relatable to people. And that's why my number one gift is my ability to connect to others. And I'm like, oh, now it makes sense why I experienced that for this moment right here, to be able to have this conversation and be able to connect with this person, because people need connections, like meaningful connections.
Yeah, it's almost sort of like predetermined, would you say?
Yeah.
A little bit.
Good. Yeah, I could definitely say that. Yeah, I can agree with that.
Some people are like, don't say that. No. But I kind of, after I talk to more and more women with more and more stories and more connectivity, it seems like you can connect all the dots that led them to where they are and why they're there. And it seems like the really, really aligned ones, I hate that word because it's overused, but the ones that are really living in that purpose say, oh yeah, all that brought me to where I am. And I look at this as where I am as like, it was already set and I'm just blessed to be doing it. So interesting.
Absolutely.
But take us through. So then you get out of the military, you come on home, mom's coming home, and?
So, you know what? That's a really good question. What happened after that? Like, that's so good. Like, I have to do another timeline chart.
We have so many I'm like, so what year was, how'd you do that? How did that fit in?
Yeah, I know.
Sorry, I just like to create this lovely little picture show, timeline, little story, and we have to go through the timeline.
Yeah, no, that's good. So, I really think that after I got out of the military, it was kind of like, now what? You know, it was really like a now what with me. It was a lot of, okay, so I was in the military, like, what type of job do I get now? What can I do with me being in the military?
I mean, you're so young still. You're only 26, right? 25, 26?
Yeah. And it was really just about really discovering and really trying to find myself in that sense, because there was like, now I don't have anybody telling me what to do. I can get up whenever I want to get up. It was a little struggle in the beginning, because I was so used to having to be at formation at this time, having to exercise at this time, having to take all these tests and having to put, you know, the military before, you know, myself and before my family. And also it was kind of like almost like a culture shock for getting out. And it was like, wait a minute, I don't have to stand a certain way when I'm in line. And I would find myself and I'm like, oh, wait, I can actually eat my yogurt with a spoon and not a fork. That's interesting, right? Okay. You know, so it was a lot of different things right there. So it was still me really trying to, especially when I think back to it, really just trying to figure myself out. Then there was some issues and stuff with the marriage, you know, and also it was just really just dealing with a lot and really still struggling like internally there, working jobs, not staying at them long. I'm like, I'm over this. Soon as there was something I didn't like, I was like, I'm done. That's it. And I would just be like, I'll just quit. Yeah, I would just quit. And I see what it is now. I mean, I was never meant to be locked down into like a 9 to 5, you know, job. And it has nothing to do. I have nothing against 9 to 5, that they make the world go round. Like we need people in that sense, but those things just really weren't for me. And when I really look back, I'm like, oh, I got that experience out of that place. And that was all that I needed. That was all that I needed. And it was on to the next thing, and it was on to the next thing. And I struggle with the part because society says that you need to be consistent and you need to lock down and you need to focus and you need to do this and that. But that's not how I was designed. Very fluid. Especially like my human design, I'm very fluid. So it's like, oh, 1 minute I'm this and the next minute I'm that. That's why I have a hard time with saying like, well, who is Tisha? I'm like, I don't know. I'm evolving every day. I can tell you the things I do, but by the time somebody listens to this podcast, I might not even do that anymore.
Right. And that's kind of fun. That's the fun sense that the energy that you give off is like, you're free and you're just going to go with whatever is downloaded to you and what makes sense right then. And there's nothing wrong with that for sure. And people need to maybe tap into that a little bit more. But you also get home and you haven't been home in 5 years. And now you're going home to children that have grown up a little bit and a marriage that you never really got into.
No. Okay, let me back up. Let me be clear. I just go through the boot camp, but no, my family was with me. My kids were with me. No, so when you're in the military, you go through your training, you go through 9 weeks of training that you're away from your family then. And then once you graduate, then they come with,
Oh, okay.
So, So no, we moved to Georgia. I got stationed in Hinesville, Georgia. You get to put on a list the top 3 places you want to go. I don't remember where I put, but one of them for sure, my top was Atlanta. I said Atlanta, Georgia. They sent me to Georgia, but they sent me to Hinesville. I was like, this is nowhere near Atlanta. At all. Nice. But that was where I wanted to go. But I ended up in Hinesville, Georgia, which is right outside of Savannah. And it's a super, super small, just straight military town. So a lot of people there told me that for me not to base my military experience off of being there. And I did. Okay. So I was like, yeah, I'm done. So no. My family, my kids were with me.
Okay. So it wasn't some like, I have to adjust to life now with a family. Okay. That's good. Good.
Oh yeah. No. They were there. And then my mom came and my mom moved and she came and stayed with me. So, which was really good because she was there like with the kids because it was a lot of not being, even though I was there, it was not a lot of not being there because the military comes first. The military comes before anything, and you're there from early in the morning to late in the evening, and you get up and you do it again.
What was your husband doing during this time?
running around acting like he was in the military, showing his spouse's card, getting any and everything. And I'd be like, I'm done with you. I was like, I'm done. He would get a car, you know, I mean, he had to pay for it, but it was easy because he was the spouse in this sense. So he had a job there, you know, he worked there. And then he did a lot of our, to be honest, a lot of our troubles was when I joined the military and being in there. And it was more of a lot of people got in his head and was basically playing on his own insecurities that he had, that I thought that it was like I was better than him, you know, because I was evolving and per se he wasn't evolving. So I never put that off in that sense. But there was a lot of people around him that was just like, oh, you're how you have your wife in the military, she's definitely going to cheat on you. She's around all those guys. So it played on a lot of things in there. And that was where all of our problems started. Not to say that there weren't things. I mean, we were young. I mean, we were together from 15. So of course there's going to be things, but like our big shift in our marriage was when I did the military.
There you go.
Sure. Like,
so then you eventually get divorced.
Mm-hmm.
And then you were bouncing around in different jobs. And then that's when did you open up? You decided to go into business for yourself.
Yeah. So in 2000 so after we got a divorce, we conceived our third child after the divorce. So she was determined, her soul was determined that we were going to be the parents because we were not together. We had got divorced and everything. And then we ended up conceiving her, but there was never a relationship or anything. So I was like, oh, she needed to come through both of us. You know, both of us needed to be her parents for, you know, her own journey and stuff. Very interesting. Very interesting. So, so between 2008 and 9, I was working for this company and it was the best. I loved it. We just had our manager and then I had my coworker and me and her were friends. And it was like the best job ever. And I remember saying, I was like, I'm never going to leave this job. Didn't pay as well, but I mean, I was paying my bills, but I was like, I'm never going to leave this job. I'm going to stay here forever. I kid you not. Within a couple of days, I go into work and it was just weird. The energy was just weird. And she said she was taking us to lunch and our manager to lunch. And then the head guy was coming down, which is, he comes down, you know, pops into the office, but we were all going to lunch together. Well, yeah, we were getting laid off. They were closing the Richmond location. And I'm like, oh, I totally did that by saying, I'm never going to leave this place. I was going to
ask you, do you think the universe is like, wait.
Yeah, the universe was like, sit down. You're being real foolish right now. And was like, boom, you know, and shook that up because in my mind, I was literally like, I'm never leaving this place. This is the best place ever. I'm going to stay here forever. And nope. Couple days done. You know, we got laid off. They closed the Richmond office. And because our manager at the time, she was already from New York and she was working from home. And then she moved to Virginia, still working for the same company. So she really didn't have to have an office. So of course, it makes sense from a business standpoint. If you're going to cut costs, what can you cost? Well, what can you cut? Let's close the Richmond office and let her go back to working from home. We get rid of those 2 salaries and we get rid of all the office expenses. Makes sense from a business standpoint. Totally get it. And I remember going to apply for, like assistance and they denied me. And they said, because I was over, I can't remember how much, I think it was about like $20 or $21. I was over the limit. Mind you, I have no job, but because I was in the military, I got like $420 a month and I was over the limit to qualify. It was like 20 something dollars is what I was over and they wouldn't give me the benefits. And I was like, the only thing I had when I was younger, I had got WIC when I was pregnant. When I was 16, I had gotten WIC. And I'm like, I've been working since. And you mean to tell me I just got, and I have my letter from them that, you know, my job is, you know, over. And because I have $400 something, I didn't like that feeling because to me, it was a rejection. And that's a big part of like my story and my struggle is where I don't ask anybody for help. And I don't ask anybody for help because if you tell me no, I'm gonna feel some type of way. But what it really boiled down to is I don't want to be rejected. So I won't put myself in a position to get rejected. And that was what happened. I feel like I was rejected. And I said, I don't want to ever feel like this again. So I got my license to sell insurance. And that was with like a group of people. And I just like hustled. And I was like, look, if anything ever happens, I can have my license. I'll go sell like 2 or 3 policies. I'll be able to pay my bills, and I'm just going to like keep this in this sense. So that was really kind of like that spark of like, yo, I don't want my life and my livelihood into someone else's. So if someone else decides that, yeah, I want to cut costs, then again, I'm not even mad at them. From a business standpoint, it makes all the sense in the world. But from like my own thing, I was like, this doesn't feel good. And then to go get assistance, you know, temporarily, and to get denied, I was like, wow. So that was where it really kind of like shifted into me doing my own thing. I've always wanted to go into nursing. This is the part of the bouncing around. I dabbled so much into school. You know, I got my degree in paralegal. So technically I'm a paralegal. Yeah, exactly. So random, right? But it's not, because I've always wanted to be a lawyer. But it's not,
right? No, yeah. It all adds up now.
Yeah, I always wanted to be a lawyer, but I just didn't want to go through all the schooling of it. And I was like, that's just too long. And our family friend, who's an attorney, and something he said to me that just stuck so well, he said, the time has to pass anyway. And I was like, dang, that's deep. He's like, regardless of it, the time has to pass. So whether you think that you got to go to school for 3 years, those 3 years is going to go by anyway. So why not do something that you want to do? The time has to pass. And I think a lot of people at an older age look at that in a sense like, oh, I'm too old to do this. I'm too old to do that. But it's like, that time is going to pass anyway. So why not spend it doing something that you actually want to do, and other than doing things that you don't want to do? So I kind of stick with that too. When I start questioning things like, oh my God, that's going to be too long. I'm like, wait a minute, that time is going to go by regardless, man. So, you know, I bounced even from school, doing different things in that sense. And I kept going back to nursing, and then I just stopped and be like, I'm over it. You know, one of those things. And I really do wish I was consistent with that. But I always wanted to go into like really like nursing. And I think that was more of the giving back and the helping people. And one of my biggest fears was getting old and dying. And I was very, very scared to get old and to die. It was a big, big, big fear of mine. And then I seen this thing where you could like go and work for like the elderly and stuff, but I've always had this thing for elderly and children. But I'm like, there's a fear of dying and getting old. So why am I being drawn to elderly people? It's so weird. So I seen that I could go get like my PCA certification. It was only like 2 weeks, and it was like $400. And I was like, you know what, this would be good. It's not that much time to put into it, and it's not that much of an investment. That way I can see if I like this. And so I started working, and I would go and do part-time and work with the elderly. I went through an agency and work with the elderly. And I just found myself just being sad, you know, and seeing like that. And the ones who didn't have family, I love the interaction with them, but I was just like, I can't do this. I'm getting too attached and it's too emotional. So I was like, yeah, I can't do this. Remember, I have a fear of getting older and dying. So I removed myself from that. And then I seen an admin position, like a care coordinator for a home care company. And I'm like, I said I wasn't going to do this, but let's do this from the other way. Instead of being the one that's taking care of them, let's do the office part. So that's when I went and got a job. And I was like, oh, I'm still in the field, but I really like it. It's a different way. I get to work with the caregivers. I get to hire them, and I get to do, you know, all that, but I'm not actually working with them. And that was good. And then that's what popped into, I started a school. So I started a school. Yeah, you're probably like, yeah, I don't think I even told you that part before. Yeah, I started a school when that came about, because in here in Virginia, because I'm in Virginia right now, in order to work in the homes of like the elderly and the disabled, you have to at least be certified if they're taking Medicaid, or if you're putting your hands on them, meaning like giving them a bath, you know, helping them, you know, get dressed. So the agency that I was working for, they were doing like an audit, and they found out that a lot of the girls that worked there didn't have their certification. So it's a kind of a fine line between, it was like, well, no, you don't have to. And then the person that I was working with, that was the manager there, was like, yes, you do. And it was a whole big thing. So they tasked me, I'm new now, and they gave me that task. They said, well, I want you to, you know, research some schools and see if you can like, you know, negotiate some rates and get everybody certified. So I was like, okay. So I did. I got some information, and I sent. This is so huge though for me when I think of the whole grand scheme of things. I sent them an email, and I sent it to the HR person, and then I copied the owners on the email, because it was all a part of it. And I said, okay, these are who I reached out to, and I put it in order. I said, number one, this person, they said they could work with the schedule. This is how much they would charge. We could take it out the people's check. Da 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 da. So the last thing I said, or since we already have a nurse on staff, we could just offer the class ourselves. And that way it's another stream of income for the company who's already been around at that time, 20 something years. We have the nurse, our nurse can then certify them. They get their certification. And now we're not only a home care agency, but we're now also a PCA school, which was common, around there. The HR guy emails back and says, that's not a good idea. We're not going to do that. And tells the owners, oh, she's like overzealous or something like that. I didn't even know what that word meant. She's new, like just disregard that. This is what we're going to go with. So that fueled me. So say I can't, and I can. So I was like, wait a minute, it is a good idea. So I was like, okay, so behind the scenes, idea. Exactly. So behind the scenes, I just researched the same thing that I already did. I said, how do I start my own PCA school? I got in touch with the person. She sent me the application. She said, you just need to have a nurse and you need to send the nurse, I reached out to the same nurse. I said, hey, I'm just going to start this school. Will you certify them in there? So in the building that we had our office in, they had a conference room. So those ladies that needed to get certified, printed out the book, gave the manual to her, charged them their little money. They paid me and boom, I had the school. I'm like, okay, so I'm working for the agency. Okay, you say it's not a good idea. So now it's my idea. It was already my idea anyway, but I'll do it for myself. And then I was paying the nurse. So I was doing this while I was working. And then I said, what else can I offer that I don't have to pay someone, that I could do myself so I could just make more money? And then CPR and first aid popped in my head. So I went and got certified to be an instructor. So I did that. And then I found myself having to turn down people because of this job. This job was in the way. I'm like, wait a minute, I can make $750 in one class right here for one day. And I was like, yeah. So I told them, I put in my notice and I told them because my school was going and it was, it was good. And they had the head person come down from corporate to literally beg me to stay. It was like, look, you can go part-time. You can make your own schedule up. You still doing like your whole thing, so it won't interfere with that. And you literally just tell us when you're gonna work. And I was like, first I was just like, I'm done. This is stupid. This is done. I don't care about that. But my youngest son's dad was like, just ride it for as long as you can. He was like, they're telling you can make your own schedule.
It's very practical.
You can go part-time. Why not just ride it until you can't do it anymore yourself? And you're stacking your money. You're building your school over here. So I really value his input. So I was like, you're right. Ego was in the way. But while I had a school, and then one of my caregivers reached out to me, and that's where everything shifted. She said, I have this client, and this client needs somebody to provide care because the agency that they're with hasn't been, showing up. And I was like, but I'm not an agency. I was like, I'm the school. And then I was like, wait a minute. I got relationships with people. Okay. Oh, wow. I was like, yeah, let's connect me. I had no contract. I had no license. I had like nothing. I'm literally my computer died on me. I'm in the library Googling like templates for the contract, and I'm getting everything together, and I go out there, and from there it was a wrap. Then now I have a home care agency. So, so the thing is that, when someone tells you that an idea or something is not a good idea, don't listen to that. Explore it yourself, because where did that idea come from? Because if in my case, remember why I emphasize the fear. I have a fear of getting old and dying, and now I own a home care agency. That's crazy. Like, but it was something that I had a fear of, but now this is like my living, in this sense. Right. So the thing is don't be afraid to face your fear, because that's where like the greatest gifts is in our fear. And now I don't look at getting old and dying as a fear. It's actually an honor. It's an honor, because when I go back to my best friend, Gloria, she went to sleep and she never woke up. So getting old, and we're getting older, it's a privilege, and it's an honor in that sense. So you ran this agency, and then how did that, was it when Gloria died that you changed your trajectory? Yeah. So this is in 2014. And then Gloria died December 29th, 2017. So I had already been like feeling some type of way about the agency, not about what I did. I just burnt myself out. And let's go back to what I said. Like, I have a hard time asking people for help. So I feel like I can do it all on my own. So I caused that burnout. It wasn't what I did. What I did was very meaningful and I loved it. I loved, training the caregivers, helping to build them up with their things bigger than working for the agency. So there was a lot of meaningful relationships there. And even with the clients and the daughters and their sons. So it wasn't that I burnt out. I burnt out from not taking the help. So I was like, I'm thinking I'm just going to sell it. I'm just going to be done. And then when Gloria died, it was really, again, me questioning everything. And so I ended up selling it in June of 2018. And I just went on this journey. I ended up in Egypt for 10 days. It was just this soul journey, this like personal discovery. And I don't think I would have been able to I know that I wouldn't have been able to do that while still having this business because I hadn't built things up into place where it could like operate completely like without me. Had I had done that, then I would have been able to step away and let other people run it and stuff while I'm figuring myself out. So I closed that chapter out. But fast forward, I'm doing it again. I'm starting it over, but from a different place and a different, stance. So yeah, that was where that shifted. And that was a time where I met with the psychic and, when she's a medium.
So wait. So you're breaking down. I mean, your soul is just grieving your best friend's loss. She was also the sister of your first husband. So like, this was like this whole...
Us family.
It was like...
My kids, my 3 kids, 3 of the 4, she's their aunt. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's huge. And it's a very close relationship. And then she dies and then you're given this name by your aunt because you just want some answers. Like, okay, we already know you're scared to death. Me too. And you're trying to face your fear without realizing you're facing your fear yet. And then you're going for some answers. You get this name. What happened? So you said, sure, I'll call this person. What happened?
So she gave me the number and, actually she didn't give me the number. She's like, I'm gonna send it to you when we get off the phone. She didn't send it. So like 30 minutes in, I'm like, give me the number. So she gave me the number, but I had to ask her, I said, how much does it cost? She was like, honestly, I don't know because her aunt had paid for it. I didn't care. So she told me, so I leave a message for her, Jessica. And then I'm on the phone and she calls me back and like my heart just drops. I'm like, I'll call you back. And I'm like, hello. Like, it was just like this so intense thing. And she was just like, yeah, whatever day it was the Sunday after that she had availability. She told me her price.
You already felt some kind of energy just in getting that phone call?
Just in getting that phone call was almost kind of, honestly, it was kind of scary. It was feeling was just like, what is this? So I asked her how much she charges and she tells me, and I was like, okay. And mind you, I didn't even have the money then. The reason being was I had just did like payroll. Payroll was like, I don't know, like $4,000 or $5,000 or something for like that week. So I was like, I got to wait for all this stuff to clear first before I figure this out. But then I said, okay, so how do I pay you? And she was like, oh, well, you can Venmo me, or you could just like, she's like, Venmo me afterwards, or you could just mail me a money order. So in my mind, I was like, oh, if I mail a money order, it gives me a little bit of time to get the money up, to get it in there. Mm-hmm. But I was like, okay, cool. So she said, let's do it on Sunday. So I was like, perfect. So in my mind, I'm doing this session. I don't really know what to expect, but I know that I'm expecting something from, it's just all about my best friend. That's what was my mind, what it was going to be. And so she does it on FaceTime, and we're on FaceTime. I leave the kids and I go in the parking lot of McDonald's and I'm sitting there and she comes on this FaceTime. And the very first thing that she says is, your dad is here. I'm like, wait, what? So I just start crying.
That's not who I'm calling. That's not who I want to talk to.
Well, right? I start like tears just start coming down my eyes. And anybody that knows me knows I don't show that vulnerability. You won't see me cry, any of that. And here it is with this stranger. And I'm just like, what? And then it just opened up and she started telling me all these things. Right. And when she tells the story, she says like how like basically there was like no, like real, not much life in my face, but I was just looking at her like, this crazy lady, like, skeptical in a sense. And that was like my stance. And I'm just listening to everything that she's saying. And I'm like, holy crap. And it was like, she was reading my book, but it was a book that I hadn't written yet. She has this book of everything on me, and me being so private, there's no way that she couldn't Google it on me. She couldn't go to my social media, especially with my dad. I don't talk about anything of that now. I do, but there was nothing that you could even remotely like Google that she was saying about me. And she couldn't get anything from my body language because I wasn't giving her anything.
Because you were like,
that's really how it was. It wasn't even like I was lighting up about anything. It was just like the heck. So she started giving me all these things. She knew about my kids. She was saying that there was the energy of the kids. She knew what my son was going through with like football. It was crazy. And I'm like, this stuff is so just bizarre. But I'm like, oh my God. So I'm believing her. And she tells me something. My grandmother came through, but I didn't know what that meant until after my session. I told my aunt, and then my aunt told me what that meant. And she was like, yeah, your grandmother, she's like, it's like she came and she just swooped through and saved you. And then your life switched and changed. Well, what she was talking about was my mom, I think my mom has a different story, but she had left me in like an apartment, and it was like a bunch of like crackheads and stuff in there. My grandmother found out, and she came and she like barged in there and she took me. And that's how I ended up living with her. So I didn't even know this. I didn't even know that story. So here I am now in my late 30s, finding that how that shift actually happened, like from a freaking medium. Like, how do you come on, make some logical sense of that? You can't. So she's going through all the different things, and she's telling me, and mind you, I wasn't even prepared for any of that stuff. And it was all about my life. She was about the business. She wasn't saying like, oh, your business, da da da. She was giving me the energy in it. And I knew what she was saying in that. But back to being in the closet crying that day, I remember having my selfish moment. And I saying to Gloria, I said, now what am I supposed to do? You're the only one that knows this thing. It was something I was going through. And you're the only one that knows this about me. And you helped me with the first part. But now what am I supposed to do? And I just kept saying, what am I supposed to do now?
Yeah, you left before you could finish helping me with this thing I have.
Exactly. So then we fast forward to talking with the lady. Now I'm just listening to everything she's saying. And then she's saying with Gloria, she's saying the energy, and I'm just like with Gloria. And so Gloria gives her this message, and then I'm like, holy crap. She answered the question. She answered when I said, what am I supposed to do? And I'm like, even though I was believing everything, but when she said that one part, I'm like, I was home by myself in the closet, crying, asking these questions. And then she says this, I'm like, and even though I was already believing her, but it was like, even though my best friend had physically left this earth, she was still helping me, and she was still guiding me. So that opened up everything, literally opened up everything for me. And I was like, I'm good. I'll probably have another one of these sessions in like 6 months, okay, let me just take these things that she was saying. But then later on that night, it was really just started like really hitting me, and it was really heavy. So I text her something.
Wait, let me ask a question. Mm-hmm. When you say later that night, so first of all, whatever this medium said to you, you believe is what Gloria would have said to you had she been alive. And so she's sharing this information now, and it just resonates with you. And you're like, yeah, that's Gloria. Okay.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
Then you're excited. You feel like, okay, almost resolve, right? Like you kind of feel like, okay, I can get past some of this hurt now. And then now that night, what's different for you that night?
So going back to the session. So when you're having this session with like Jessica or even with someone such as myself, yes, people come through. So those people came through, but that wasn't the session. The session now is not just them coming through. It's everything about my life. Everything where I'm struggling at, how I'm not in alignment with my actual purpose, and these different things that's all coming through. So all of that is coming through. It's not just like, oh, my dad said this, my grandmother said this, and Gloria said, it's like the overall thing. So later on that night, it was just, first of all, my mind was just blown, because I was like, is this real? And I'm like, I couldn't debunk it, because there's no way she could know these things. And it wasn't like she's just looking like saying vague things at all. Like she even told me where my son was going to end up going to college at for football in this. And that's a whole other story though, of how that's okay. That'll be in part 2. So later on that night, like now I'm having more questions about things that she said. So it's going through my mind. And when I say what was different was I was really things just looked different and felt different. So I just reached back out to her and I asked her something, and then she responded back to that. And then we ended up hopping on the phone talking. And then she said, you can do this, Tish. And I said, do what? And she said, what I'm doing. I was like, no, I can't. She's like, yeah, you can. It's in you. It's always been in you. She's like, you can do this. And
you're like, I'm the biggest skeptic there is. I say it's stupid.
It's just dumb. It's stupid. Like, no, we're not talking to nobody. There's no energy. There's none of that foolishness. And but I believed her. And the reason why I believed her was because of everything else that had came through. So because everything else that came through, why would I not believe that? What does she have to gain to say that to me? And that's where everything just opened up. At that point in my life, I kept saying that I'm skateboarding through. I'm like, it's like I'm just skateboarding through life, and I've never gotten on a skateboard before. But it felt like that because the grass was greener, the sky was blue, and this is not even like to be cliche. Everything.
Like when you woke up the next morning, all these things.
It just everything looked different. And it was kind of like, you know, when you have glasses and they're like foggy and then you like clear them off and you're like, oh, this is good. I was seeing from a different perspective, from a new lens. And that was where everything really just started like changing. I started making like decisions, and then that gift. So people say like, well, when did you know that you had this gift? And I'm like, well, I've always had it. I just wasn't consciously aware until after my best friend died. So I've always been doing what I do now, just in a different way.
Wow. Okay. So then you started going on journeys, because now you're like addicted to this. Would you say? You're like,
for sure. Everything was spirituality. I was like, I don't want to do anything. I don't want to work. Because I had the agency still. I didn't sell that till June of 2018. I was like, I just want to study more of this. And when I say study more of it, it was more of studying within myself, right? It was like spirit was talking to me through numbers, through signs. It was things that I was seeing that I hadn't seen before. And I was getting these things, and I started getting like these downloads, and it led me to Egypt. I spent 10 days in Egypt. So
when you say download, can you tell me what that is for you?
Yeah. So a download for me is when it's like all of a sudden just something is just in my head to do something. And then I do
out of nowhere.
Yeah, just out of nowhere. There's nothing logical about it. Nothing logical about it. So prime example, yesterday, I was just sitting in my room, minding my business. And I literally got this download to go on social media and post something. So when I posted on there was literally me affirming something. And I said, before I physically leave this earth, I will be contracted with the NFL to help their players, with their skills and the power of their mind. And I was like, boom, putting it out there to the universe. Wasn't nothing logical behind it. I wasn't thinking about it in a sense. It literally just popped in my head to do that. So I did. Well, then one of my clients/friends sends me a message. Well, she put a message, and it was like one of those, like, how you say like, or like, or something. So I liked it. And I was like, what does that mean? She was like, I already made the connection. I just sent this post to my NFL agent friend. And I was like, what? So he reached out to me. And so I started like laughing. I was like, okay, spirit, thank you. Because again, that it comes out of the blue. So, but this is not me working with the NFL didn't come out of the blue, because that has been something that I've been wanting to do. Mm-hmm. I haven't been thinking about it. I haven't put any energy into it. But yesterday, just sitting there, it popped into my head to go and do this, right?
Yesterday,
put that energy out there.
Would you say that it was almost, it sounds from the outside looking in like it's orchestrated, like, okay, now's the time, because this person who knows this person is going to be on Instagram at this moment. Yep. And that's how this connection is going to be made?
Absolutely.
Would you say that's
100%. And so a part of like, even with my human design, a part of my thing is really big on community. Like everything for me comes through my community. So it's the people that I know, which makes sense because that's where all my referrals and stuff come from, people that I work, like when you were at the conference. Yeah. And everybody was saying it makes sense because that's how it's designed for me, is to come through into from the community. So yeah, so when you get downloads like that, there's nothing logical behind it, because what am I putting it out there for? Like in my mind, I'm like, I don't know anybody on here that's with the NFL. It's a waste of time if I was to get logical in that sense. But when you get like those downloads, you just move with it. You
need to take action, right?
Absolutely. That's to me, I look at it like it's the universe or spirit or God saying that the light is green. It's go. It's clear. So take now the human part, we got to take the action in that. Right. Mm-hmm. So I could have allowed like the fear, the ego to be like, I don't want to put my business out there. People don't need to know that I want to work with the NFL, like, or that's something completely different and or whatever the case is. And I'm like, oh no, when I get them, I put it out there or whatever.
I love that. Whatever. Yeah. And it's hard because sometimes it's vulnerable stuff.
It is. Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. Oh my gosh. That's so cool. What I want to ask you is, so this lady, Jessica, says, you can do this too. And you kind of ran with that. Mm-hmm. And ever since then, your whole life has been following basically what this one person started. So what does that look like? How have you gotten to where you are, and what are you doing now?
Yeah. This is interesting. And she's very aggressive. I love her. She's very aggressive. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm like, I don't let anybody talk to me like that, but we're going to do it. You still work with her? Oh yeah. We're definitely connected. I've brought her on and we've done like lives, and people are like, oh my God, this is great in this sense. Oh yeah. Yeah. I'm definitely still connected with her. And I send a lot of people to her. Actually, I just had a recent person was like, thank you so much for connecting. You're right. She's super, super aggressive in a nice way. Aggressive meaning like she gets straight to it. She's not fluff. And this is just what it is. This is coming through. And it's like, you do what you want with this, in that sense. So ever since she said that, I was noticing like Spirit was talking to me through numbers. So I started getting into numerology. And I started like giving people like their life path number and doing in that sense. And then she said something about oracle cards, and she taught me that oracle cards is a great way to build your intuition. So she's like, go get this deck. I was like, okay. She said, and now I want you to throw the book away. And I'm like, wait, I just bought this. And she's like, throw the book away. And I'm like, why? And because I need to know why I'm doing something. And she said, because anybody can memorize a book and anybody can read from the book. This is for you to trust in your intuition and the guidance and you channeling coming within. I was like, okay, that makes sense. Yeah. So she's like, so she said, now I just want you to pull cards for everyone. Pull cards for anyone, your friends, your family, everyone. Just pull cards for them and start building it. Pull for yourself. And I was like, okay. So I was doing that. And then she was like, okay. She's like, now I need you to post on social media and say that you're doing readings. I was like, no, wait, what? I mean, I got to tell the world, because to me, social media is your world, right?
So you're actually turning into a tarot card reader.
Yeah. So so that's how it started. So she said, now I want you to post on social media and say that you're for the next, I just seen the post too. It was a couple years. It was something like, for the next like 10 days where I'm taking 15 people. I don't remember what it was, something like that. And I was so scared to do that because that means I have to tell people that I connect in this other realm and I do these things and stuff. And it was hella scary. And she's like, why? But what she said to me, she said, that doesn't make any sense. She said, why are you scared of something that's a part of you? And that's where that shift was. I said, wow. So I posted it and I was so surprised. I had so many people saying me, people that I wouldn't even thought that they were open to me pulling cards for them. I was like, what is going on? So it just started going from there. And that was it. And then I would just do card readings. And then my confidence and my intuition was built up that I didn't need the cards. I would just do a reading and everything just kind of, built up. See, a lot of times people want to just jump straight into something, but if your foundation isn't straight, and that foundation meaning of believing in yourself, because that's what it was about. I didn't believe in myself. I would hang up the phone from people and I'd be like, I am such a fraud. I made all of that stuff up because I didn't understand it logically. I'd be like, how do I know these things? And I'm just saying this stuff, like to people, and I'd be like, I'm such a fraud. But really what it was is I was just channeling. And then you have to just believe in yourself, in anything that you do, you gotta believe in yourself. But in order to believe in yourself, you have to take action, right? So you have to take action so you can validate that you can do this, and whatever that thing may be. So then from there, it ended up being, not just doing the readings, but then it ended up being working with people. So not only just giving them the things that's being downloaded, but now how can I teach you and help you through that? Because you can get off of the phone with me and be like, oh my God, that was crazy. That was amazing. Now what? And you're back to the now what, which is a question you always asked yourself. Now what?
And you knew that people needed to be guided through that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then that's when it just started. Cause I was like, I'm teaching people in these readings. Spirit will say something to give me something for the person. And I would say it. Then I'll be like, for example, and then I would go through something so I was already teaching. So then I started working with people one-on-one. Then there were people that were asking me to speak to their teams and doing little things like that. And then I had my first in-person one and I was scared so bad. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to be in person doing a talk. Panic attack, And, it was just the thing. And then I started like my t-shirt line and I just started just dabbling. And
there's that design that you had a design thing that never happened in Germany. See, and that
And it came.
Came
So
in
it's always
in
been
another
there.
way.
Yeah. So it's always been there. So then, have the podcast. That was interesting because I was like, I want to do a podcast. And then I instantly said, no, I don't. I just want to do a podcast because everybody else has a podcast. So I pushed that to the side. And then I was like, no, I do want to do a podcast. I really do want to do a podcast. And then the podcast was birthed. But it was actually called #certified, which was what my brand was for the shirts. And then I wasn't feeling it. I wasn't feeling it. And when I wasn't feeling it, I reached out to Jessica, who, with her company, Insta Podcast, that does the podcast. And it was on my list of things to talk to her about it. But before I could say that to her, she was like, I was talking to my friend Megan and I was telling her all about the session that I had with you. And then she was like, yeah, she's the one with the podcast. And she was like, wait, what? She's like, that's the same person. And she was like, basically, she was saying she didn't get that from there, like with like the name. And I was like, that's so, I took a screenshot and I said, that's so funny that you said that because I was going to talk to you about that. Like I was saying, I wanted to change the name. I was like, I wanted to change the name, but I didn't know what that looks like logistic wise in the background of changing your name on a podcast and stuff. So my most downloaded at the time podcast episode, it had Seeing with Your Soul in the title. And I was like, I really just like that because that's what it is. It's just about seeing with your soul, not seeing with this. Because when you look through these things right here, it's a whole other world you're just not seeing.
It's all logic, right? Yeah. And it's a small part of what we can process.
Absolutely. So I was like, so then Seeing with Your Soul was birth. And I've just been running with it since. And then, I ended up doing like the retreats. That was something that was downloaded to me a year and a half prior to me actually putting the action, because I was just like, no, who do I think I am? Right. We all go through that.
Did it just pop into your head? Now you need to do a retreat.
Yeah. To do retreats, to work with people in a more intimate setting. And then like in this group. And what it really was that what was coming through is that people don't make that time for themselves to go on a retreat and to just focus on themselves. And this is what Spirit was saying, that I can create a safe space for people to want to do that, because people just don't, well, I'm saying obviously it's not everyone, but most people don't. I didn't. In that sense, every time I would try to even say I want to go and do something, I think, well, I can't do it because I got to do this with the kids, and I have this here, then I have this here. And the next thing you know, it just does not happen.
Just you taking time for yourself.
Taking time for yourself. So that was the whole thing, the concept around that. So I was like, yep, I'm doing it. I made up a date and I just threw it out there. And when I got the first person, I said, holy crap. I
have to do it.
And then COVID hit.
Oh.
Rose eyes. Yeah. COVID hit and it had to get pushed back, but it was perfect that it got pushed back to the following, which was now, because
you're just coming off of that.
Yeah, coming off of the second one, but so the first one was in May, and then two of the people that were there, I hadn't even known them yet. So had it had happened, before, they wouldn't have been at the retreat because I didn't even know them yet. So it was perfect. It was perfect. Spirit just needed me to take action. God just needed me to take action and say, okay, I can do this. And so I just had the second one, and my next one is actually going to be in November in Ohio. So.
Oh, you chose Ohio. Okay.
Yeah, we chose Ohio for that. And then next year, as long as COVID is straight, we already have Bali on the books, and then Jamaica in July. Yeah, Bali is March 29th. Sign
myself up.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. And you also, one thing that I love about you is you just don't sit back you're always learning. You're constantly taking courses and classes and hypnosis. You were certified in hypnosis, correct?
Yeah. So the only thing that I've done, I've gotten my Reiki, and I did, got certified in hypnosis. And then like the yoni steam and everything else in between, and all the stuff that I know, like literally just came from literally channeling and downloading. I didn't really even realize that until someone asked me something. They said, how did you know? And I said, wait a minute, they didn't teach me that in my hypnosis thing. They just told me the basic part of that, but everything else literally comes from me. I don't know what I know until someone asks me a question. And that's how I know I'm in like that. That's how I thrive. So I got a lot in that sense of there. So I tell people all the time, I'm like, just ask me a question. Just ask me. They were like, oh, do you plan for your podcast? I said, no, I can't plan for a podcast. There's no way that I can sit down and plan for my podcast or being on someone else's podcast, it would just, you would be able to tell that it's not authentic. So it's just more like, just ask me questions. Like that's my best. That's when I'm in my best, is when people ask me questions. Right.
Uh-huh.
So,
and you said in one of your episodes that when you get the best downloads and the best information and the most useful information is that piece between right before you fall asleep and when you're out, right? There's some kind of time span.
Yeah, the in-between stage is is where I get the stuff. I literally hear it. It's like I'm talking to myself. Yeah, it's like I'm talking to myself, and then I'll just be like, I'll be like, oh my gosh, I gotta do this. You know,
do you write it down?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll write it down. Okay. Yeah, I'll write it down. Yeah, so sometimes I intentionally do it. I'd be like, man, I'm struggling with this. I'd be like, I need to go take a nap. I need to go like lay down so I can get into that space. And it happens. It doesn't happen that often when I intentionally go and do it. It's more so of just like, oh, and then I'm like, oh, I just got this. Like, it's like the best, because that's when our ego is going night night. And there's the consciousness is coming down. So I've created that space to actually be able to like hear. So a lot of times people struggle with not knowing what to do. And it's because they have so much noise around them. If you really just drown it out, get off of social media, don't listen to a podcast, don't listen to any music, get outside or go sit in your closet or whatever, and just be still and just start to clear some of that noise out, you'll get your answer. You'll get your solutions. Like it's there. We just don't have any, not that we don't have it, we don't make room for it.
We don't make room. And there's a couple things you said that I absolutely want to share, because one of the coolest things on one of your most recent podcasts, The Loop, is you were discussing the fact that you either are living, these were like revelations for you. Mm-hmm. You're living to die versus existing to die.
Yeah.
And that we find a lot of us are in the loop of just doing the same thing over and over again. And that's more of the existing to die. Whereas I forget who was that said that to you. Well, we're living to die. Are you living to die?
Yeah, I was having a conversation with my friend and we were talking about that. And I'm like, yeah, we're just existing to die. That's all that it is. So everybody knows, that's the one thing for sure we know, is that all of us at some point in our life is going to physically leave this earth. No one can argue with that. Don't care what your beliefs and stuff, no one can argue. We know that, right? What are you doing in between or leading up to that? Because we don't know when that's going to happen, right? So if you're just existing, it's just like, oh, I'm just here. I'm just going to be here. And I know at some point I'm going to die. So, what's the purpose of me doing anything that I really like or enjoy, because this is my life. So you kind of get caught up in doing every day is the same thing. But where's the evolution at? Where's the growth at? And that's like that loop. But that living is like, if you don't know, because none of us know when we're going to go. If you don't know when it's going to be your last day physically here, why not just do the things that you actually want to do? Like, why won't? Because we've been programmed. We've been programmed that we have to do this and we have to do that. And we have to just exist, right? We're working to do what? Just to pay the bills. And then guess what? The next month is the exact same thing. Mm-hmm. Every month is the same. We're working, whatever our work is, whether it's your business or whether it's at a job, and you have kids, you're taking them, they have a routine, they're going to school. If that's the case, you go to job, you get a job, you get your paycheck, and then you pay this bill. You might have to finesse some things around here. Oh, this is the day that I go to the grocery store. This is the day that I do this. And every day is the same thing. Every single day is the same thing. Like, what are you working towards? Oh, I'm just working towards just going to the gym or going to school or going to work or paying this bill or doing that. What are you actually like working towards? Like, that you're going to physically leave. So what makes you happy? Most people don't even really think about that. I don't have time because I have to do this. Like, no, do something that makes you happy, and that other stuff will fall in place.
It's so true. It's so true. Tisha, what are some things that you say to yourself to keep yourself going and staying positive and keep moving forward? Because it's easy to kind of get into your own. It's so easy. It's so much. It's actually work to stay up and stay positive and stay aligned and keep fighting the good fight, so to speak.
Well, for one, I have to look at it is that there is going to be the ebbs and flows of life. Everything's not going to be great and everything's not going to be super positive. But it's like, how do you look at the thing that those quotes that you think that are negative, how can you actually turn it into something positive? Like, can you learn something from it? Because when you can learn something from it, it shifts it, right? So, you know, that's something I have to do. So if there's a resistance somewhere within like myself or something, like I used to just get so worked up, and now I'm like, oh, I have this awareness now. What is this trying to teach me? And this is actually kind of annoying. So I need to hurry up and learn it. So I kind of try to have a little fun with it, right? So like you know, if I'm having some like lower back pain, right, and it's really, really hurting, I know that's my root chakra, and your root chakra is your foundation. Are you having some money issues and stuff? So when I get that pain, before I would just be like, oh, it's so miserable. And I'm like, oh, no, you're not about to sit there and start messing with my body. Let me figure this out, right? So I have to remind myself out that they're indications like for me, right? Another thing that I have to tell myself is that this is a game. Life literally is a game. I look at it like the universe is the matrix, right? I'm actually about to do a podcast on this. The universe itself is the matrix, right? Okay. And then all of us individually have created a game, and you're the creator of that game. What character do you want to be, right? So have you ever had a kid, or maybe yourself, you played a video game, right? What they say, pick your character, and you look through all these different characters. Oh, I want to do this one, and you make that your character. It's the same thing in life. Who do you want to be? What's your character now? Like, what do you want to be? You want to be somebody that just operates from a scarcity mindset and just tries to, you know, take nothing and turn it into something? Boom, make that your character. If you want to be like this super, like, you know, confident woman or man or whatever, pick that character. You know, we pick it by the colors, the size, the weapons that it has. Oh, I want this one, you know, so it's it. So who do we pick the character? Then we also get to pick our players. How many players is going to be in this game? Is it a single person game, or is it a double person game? Like, so same thing in life. We get to pick our characters. Who do I want to be in this game with me? You know what? You've actually like overstayed your welcome in this game. I don't want to use you in the next round, right? So it's a game, right? So I have to look at it.
That's a really cool analogy.
I mean, like, if we really stop and you really think about it, it is a game, and I get to create this game, right? And do I want to stay on the same level, or do I want to elevate, right? Because the loop, you're on the same level. You're like, dang, why am I on this same level? I can't beat it. If you listen to a kid, I'm having a hard time beating this level. I can't get to the next level. Okay, so at that point in the game, you want to step back and say, what am I doing differently? You know, and then it's like, oh, nothing. I'm doing the same thing. That's the problem. So if you keep doing the same thing over and over and over and over, you're not going to get to the next level, because how are you evolving and growing if you keep doing the same thing over and over? There's no change, right? So that's how I look at it. I'm like, yo, life is a game. And not life is a game like, oh, let me just take this like not seriously, you know, in that sense. It's like, no, it's a game, and I'm the creator of that. And then along the way, you know, you can get the lifeline, right? You get the mushroom to give you the superpowers. What is that? Maybe that superpower is your podcast, you know? So, okay, so I'm going to do this in there. Okay. Who is it? Like, who do you call in to like help you in that stuff? Which that podcast I just did, like, who do you lean on? So I'm like, it's a freaking game, man. And I tell people, you got to figure out how to play the game for you. Because the way that I play the game is going to be different how you play the game. Because we're going on different levels. That when you get to the end of it, or whatever, that end maybe is going to be different for you, and it's going to be different like for me. It's like those video games that has part 1, part 2, part 3. It's like, okay, so you finished part 1. Now you're going to go out and buy the next one. Okay, I'm done with that chapter. I'm done with that book, and now I'm in like the next one. So that's kind of like how I'm looking at it.
Love that.
Game. Let me figure out how to finesse this game.
That's good. That's good stuff. And do you have a mantra or anything that you do daily that helps you stay grounded and helps you stay aligned?
So, you know, and even with that word, like my company is heal, align, and glow. So it is about being aligned. It's just about
it is the word.
It's about tuning out the people who are using it just as a buzz, you know, as a buzzword, because some people are using it as a buzz and really they haven't fully understood what that actually really means in that sense. So yes, I do have a routine. It does switch up at times, but so before I even like get out of bed, I already state some type of affirmation, because at that point I haven't checked my phone. I don't have any chaos. So it's easier for me to kind of like manifest it and put it into motion, because there's nothing else that's in I'm just waking up from, you know, sleeping. So, and that really just kind of depends on how I feel. It may be around money, and I'll just be like, Money flows to me daily. That may be something that I say before I actually get out of bed. But then I set my intentions. So I set my intentions for the day, and it could be something as that day would be like, my intention for today is to really just to seek clarity. And I'm not saying how, I'm just leaving it open. I just need clarity and just kind of let that come through. I pull cards. I pull a card. Every day I pull a card to kind of see what that energy is. What do I most need to know right now? I grab my book and I'll write affirmations all the way down the page. Depending, sometimes it's just an affirmation and sometimes it just might be some thoughts in that sense. I'll take my sage and I'll like sage myself. And I sage myself in a sense because I know I'm getting ready to go out into the world. And I kind of want a shield over me because I know I can pull in a lot of like energy. And all of that I do, maybe 15, 20 minutes, not even a long time. It's just simple, but I need that to keep me grounded. And that keeps me into that sense because I know when I get out here, I'm going to be pulled in all different types of directions. So let me anchor down, into this sense. Let me put this level of protection and, how then it's stepping out into just evolving or repeating. Yeah. Sometimes I'm just repeating. I'd be like, yeah, evolve or repeat. Yeah, I just kind of just repeat it.
Yeah, but you also, you have a gift, but you also, in that gift, you take on other energies, right? Yeah. And you were talking about how as long as when you're exhausted at the end of the day, it's a good exhausted rather than the kind where you burned yourself out like you used to.
Yeah. And that still happens now. I mean, I'm in that transition right now where I'm feeling like that. I'm like, I'm exhausted, but it's not a good exhausted and I don't like it.
Oh, it's not good.
No, at times, like my retreat, I'm super exhausted, but it was a good one. It was a good feeling. It was like, yes, this is it, but really kind of where I'm like even shifted to is more of teaching. I love to teach. Like that's the thing. So it's more of like into that teaching. So it's, it's just with anybody, whether like, are you exhausted? Like we're not meant to be exhausted that it makes us brings us down. That's not what we're meant to do. Like, that's actually kind of crappy if that is the case. So, like every day you're just tired and just low energy and drained. No, that's just your body letting you know that you're not in alignment somewhere. And that's the fun part. Figure it out. Figure out where is it? What is that sense? And not believing that you have to do the things that you're doing. And I'm not saying everybody needs to go start a business at all. It's just you might just want to be in a leadership role in your thing. Or the flip side of it too, just because you're good at something doesn't mean you have to do it.
Right.
Doesn't mean you have to do it. I mean, I'm super dope at that, but I don't want to do that anymore. And that's okay. That's the thing, is to being allowing yourself to pivot whenever you want to pivot. And it doesn't take away from how good you are with something.
I love that. That's second win all the way. Find what makes your heart sing, lights you on fire, give you purpose. So that at the end of the day, you're like, yeah, that day I was present and I did the best I could with that day, whatever that looked like, to the point where you have gratitude. And I know you're big on gratitude. I think you start every podcast with having that moment of gratitude.
In this present moment, what are you grateful for? It allows people to really, kind of just like tune into your day, tune into what you're going through, or whatever the case may be, and still being able to have some type of gratitude because there's a lot that we could be grateful for.
And shift your mindset, right? Because you're the mindset slayer. Shift your mindset from being, stuck in a negative thing when really it's just your talk about it and then move on.
Yeah. And it's not easy. So I'm definitely not saying that like it's easy in that sense at all, but the battle is always you versus you. And that's the hard part, because if we want to put blame on other people and stuff and be like, oh, it's because of this, it's because of that. But it's not. At the end of the day, it's really just you versus you and me versus me. And that battle be deep. I
just wrote that down. Yep. The battle is you versus you. So true. In your mind. In that ticker tape of the loop of your mind. Absolutely. How does everybody's going to want to talk to you and work with you now. And I know you're trying to segue into more teaching, but how do people find you?
So honestly, the best way is Instagram, because that's where I like to show up and I like to play around like on Instagram. It's really cool. So definitely on Instagram at Mindset Slayer. like I said, I can say right now I'm straying away from one-on-ones, and then next year I'm like, oh, I'm doing a bunch of one-on-ones. It's really kind of just like, what feels like me, what feels like me in that sense. So, but I'm still, working with people doing like readings, of course, my podcast, a lot of people get a lot of stuff,
a lot out of that
from the podcast.
Yes.
So I would definitely say, start there, listen to the podcast and see, like, do I resonate with you? Is there a part of like your soul that's saying, you know what, I need to talk to her? Like, don't really try to figure out like in what setting, just trust it, then you can go to my site, from my Instagram, and I don't know, maybe you want to just do the talk therapy. You just want somebody, you want to be heard, or maybe you want a reading, or maybe you actually want to come to one of my retreats. It's really for you to kind of just see where are you guiding. And I like to say that with people too. It's a great way to really start to trust yourself. In that sense, is how are you connecting to me? Are you connecting to me? Right. I remember one of my clients, she sent me a DM. She heard me on a podcast and she said, I don't know what I need, but I know that I need you. Aww. Like, okay, that's cool. And we've just been vibing ever since. And she didn't know in what setting or what sense. She just knew that there was a part of her that's saying, I need to reach out to this person. And I say that. And I have some people who just send me a message on Instagram. They listen to my podcast and I've never actually worked with them, but they connect with me on there, but that's what they need. And I'm like, and I'm here for it. So.
And your site, you have a site that people can go to?
Yeah, it's healarnglow.com. And that glow is GLO.
GLO. Yeah. Because I tried emailing you once with the W and it didn't work. I'm like, it's glow. Like GLO. No W. Okay. No W. Tisha, do you have any final words you want to leave the Second Wind tribe with today?
I think it's probably something that I'm always just talking about, is just to remind you that everything that you really do need is within you. So, and it may sound to people like, oh my gosh, I'm like, you just need to trust yourself. Just trust yourself. If you get that gut feeling or that feeling, and it's especially that, pay attention to that feeling that doesn't make any logical sense. You absolutely trust it, right? Because there's nothing, our intuition has nothing logical with it, right? So trust that part. So that would probably be, say, what I would leave everybody with, is really knowing that everything that you need is within you, and just to learn to trust yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I've done that, and I'm doing that every day. And it's easy to talk yourself out of things, but when you take action, freaking cool things happen.
Absolutely.
I'm telling you, all of a sudden out of nowhere, you're like, what? How? Why? It's so cool.
It is.
So thank you so much for your time today, Tisha. I am thrilled to have had you be on Second Wind and be part of the tribe. And I really enjoyed talking to you. I really enjoy your podcast. And I'm going to work with you a little here. We'll talk after. And until next time, breathe in your second wind. Thank you for listening today. I hope that something you heard made you smile, made you think, and made you feel. If these incredible stories empowered you, awakened you, or left you feeling inspired, make sure to share with a friend and write us a review on iTunes so we can continue to change lives through this content. Make sure you tag us while you're listening on our Facebook group, My Second Wind, or hit the link in the show notes to join the conversation. Until next time, go ahead and breathe in your second wind.